Welcome to the BLUF podcast, where you get the bottom line up front and we won't waste your time.
Hello and welcome back to the BLUF line. Again, I am your host, Command Sergeant Major Juan Jimenez. This is episode 15, and I'm glad we're able to come back on. We did have a little bit of a hiccup there, but we're back on. I'm glad we're sending it out on the wavelengths again. Thank you to our listening audience for tuning in. Again, we were here to bring you the latest information that we got or bring special guests onto the show just to talk about different subjects that you might be interested in. By all means, if you want to reach out to me or ask questions or have someone that you're interested in having on the show, please email me at juan.p.jimenez.mil@mail.mil or give me a call at 256-316-6126. And again, thank you for listening in. Again, we do have a special guest for our show. Again, 15th episode. And I'm excited to bring this special guest on because we're definitely talking about some pretty interesting subjects. And it goes along with the title of an article that she put together. And it's Finding Healing While Watching Events Beyond Your Control. And with saying that, I kind of want to introduce our special guest on the show today, and it is MAJ Victoria Ijames. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to her and let her go ahead and talk to us a little bit about herself and a little bit of a background on her, ma'am. Thank you for being on the show.
Hello.
And, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk with y'all. Yes, I'm here at Fox Army Health Center. I've been in the Army for 13 years now. I'm a behavioral health provider, specifically a social worker. A lot of times people think social work, take your kids, things like that. But as a social worker, we do a variety of things. We do therapy, case management. My job primarily is therapy. Here at Fox Army Health Center, I'm the installation director of psychological health, and I'm working with the CR2C team on our holistic care for our active duty and dependents here on Redstone. So that's kind of who I am. I'm from Michigan, go Spartans out there. So joined the Army 2008, was motivated to join after September 11th, 2001. You know, realizing my brother-in-law had deployed 2003, 2004, and remembering the effects on him and my sister and their family, and realizing that, you know, what we've experienced for the past 20 years was going to change families, and how could I help with that? So that was part of my joining the military. And then, of course, got my social worker before I joined, and that's what I've been doing for the past 13 years.
Well, thank you for being on the show. And I know this is going to be an interesting topic because I think it really affects so many people. And like you said, you know, you joined after the 9/11 events, and it kind of had an impact on you and how your family saw and viewed it, along with so many other people out there. And it really kind of ties into Suicide Prevention Month of September. It really ties into thoughts and emotions that are going through people's minds, especially with the drawdown of Afghanistan and 9/11, 20th anniversary that just occurred. So I know there's a lot of things going on, and especially being in the field that you're in, I guess my question to you, ma'am, is what made you go into the field that you're in, serving in the United States Army?
Initially, when I was going to college, I wanted to be a social worker, work in the emergency room. Never had any inkling that I wanted to do therapy. But like I said, after the wars, the September 11th events happened, I remember having this sense of wanting to serve, having that sense of, you know, how it's been since Vietnam and Korea, since we've had people in conflict, and how is this going to affect families? And so I joined the military and have really come around to doing therapy. I focus on trauma work, and that has been kind of where my passion lies, is doing the work for our service member, for families, in helping to heal out of the experiences that people have gone through.
No, I think that's really neat that you're extending yourself out to continue to help out, especially when, as service members, as people go through certain situations, sometimes they really need someone to connect with. And it kind of aligns with our DOD, where it talks about connect to protect, right?
Yeah.
And it's important, I think, to continue to reach out to veterans, service members, and just anybody that is feeling different emotions. I can tell you that after the 9/11 event, it made me feel a certain way, and I think it made a lot of people feel certain ways, and some of them didn't know how to deal with those emotions or thoughts or even angers or confusion. And I think this podcast today really allows us to kind of talk to that and reach out to the audience and let them know, hey, look, if there's somebody that's feeling those, understand that a lot of us are feeling those, and I'm with you along that with that. And as I was reading the paper, I came across your article, and it really inspired me to want to reach out to you and say, hey, would you like to come on this podcast and talk a little bit about what inspired you to write this article, or why you felt like, hey, I need to put this on paper, because you made me want to say, I need to bring you on the show. So let's talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what made you, want to write this article?
It was, just sitting back, and I have not been in combat as some of our soldiers have been in combat. I've treated a lot of people from those experiences, and hearing those experiences and knowing what I've observed and heard over the years, I couldn't help but think about how are people responding to what they see on TV right now. And it was encouragement from Dr. Ferguson in our discussions. He's our at behavioral health as well. And our discussions of how is this affecting people, and encouragement of maybe we should do an article on this, because we know from our years of treatment, what we've heard soldiers, talk about memories and experiences. This, seeing it on TV, was bringing it back real for a lot of people who have maybe did their years 10 years ago in Afghanistan and Iraq, and now reliving it all over again, and being concerned with, how are people responding to this? When in the military, our objective is to go in, to win, to be the victor over our battles. And right, exactly. Have control over the situation. Right. And watching those things in Afghanistan that happened recently, it felt very out of control. And I just kind of curious and wondering, how are people, our soldiers, feeling out of that, and wondering if they're in a place of, what was it for? And that's been a common frame that we've heard people say, what was it for? And my hopes in writing that article was to give people another way of thinking about that versus what was it for? Because that can feel very defeating when we look at it and say, what was it for?
That's very interesting, because it really, when you say what was it for, it takes me back to the actual event, right? When the event occurred, I was a staff sergeant in the United States Army. I was an AIT instructor. And when we were called after those events, when we were called in to get accountability of everybody, and we were all good to go, we were sent back to the AIT classroom. And I had to deal with 30 plus brand new soldiers that were just coming in, that knew everything was unfolding, and they wanted some clarity. They were like, what, Sergeant, what's about to happen? Or what are we about to, get into? And, when you say, what was it for? It takes me back to that time when I'm standing on the platform saying, look, we are about to go into something that I need you guys to be prepared for. Mm-hmm. So when I begin to instruct and I begin to show you, what it takes to be a Patriot Systems operator, maintainer, like, pay attention, because what you learn here, you could possibly use somewhere deployed, in defending our country. So you could see the look on brand new soldiers back then, really taking it serious and having this emotion of anger and fear, because they were trying to process it too at that time live, right? And then you take it now 20 years down the road, and it'd be very interesting to talk to one of those soldiers that was in that classroom to say, what were your thoughts, or what are you feeling now? And I'm sure a lot of people are going through it. And, we talk about the recent events that unfolded in Afghanistan, right along with the 20th anniversary of 9/11. It begs to think, what are our veterans or overall people processing or thinking? And I guess I'd ask to say, with this article, what do you think, or what would you want a veteran or soldier to process through by reading your article.
What I hope that people would take away from reading that article is we are human, and our human responses are going to be, what was it for? Anger, that why did these things happen?
Right.
What was, the loss of family, friends, battle buddies? Acknowledging that we have human responses to these things that we see. Anger, frustration, sadness, guilt. All those are human responses to those things. I hope that people will take away from this article of acknowledging that and being okay, but also recognizing if these feelings are coming up that are now becoming what I called stuck points. Things that are lingering more than what it has, causing more irritability, anger, causing feelings of doubt, guilt. We should have, we could have. I hope that people would take away from this article of reflecting on that and recognizing if they are getting into those stuck points, that might be a time to talk to somebody. A lot of our service members and a lot of our veterans, some of the things that they have done and seen in combat are really hard to talk about. And what I found is that a lot of people, they can talk to their battles and talk about it and joke about it and kind of talk about it in a police report kind of way. But when you start digging at it, talking about those intimate details or those things that are really close to home that trigger emotions, that's what therapy is for. And I hope that people, when they read this article, if they are struggling with those deep down thoughts and feelings that are really hard to talk about with other battles, with friends and family, those things that they just can't let out, talk to somebody about it. Talk to a behavioral health professional about it. Holding on to those, it's kind of like holding on to this rucksack of 10-pound weights for over the years. And when people can give themselves that, allow themselves to go talk to a therapist and unload some of that, it lightens their load a little bit.
When you talk about being stuck, like it's okay to be unstuck, and when in your article, it talks, that many are reflecting on the losses or emotional scars and physical scars and wondering, was it worth it? There's no reason to hold that you're talking about. Seek out some help, talk to somebody that can help unload that rucksack that you're carrying. I can tell you that I've gone to get help, and for many years I carried that rucksack thinking, I can just push forward, and then eventually it starts to wiggle its way out. And if you don't go to seek help, and there's so many professionals out there that are ready and willing to help out, and I think some of that's what I got out of that article when I read it. It's like, it's okay to go get help.
Yeah. And we are in the military, I find we're some high performers. We're like, next thing. And it's hard for a lot of us high performers to take a break and take a knee and say, it's okay to talk about this and work on it. It doesn't mean that you are dealing with this in a bad way. It doesn't mean that you're having, the word is you're broke. I hear that a lot. It doesn't mean you're broke. It just means that at this time, it's time to work on this and talk about it, especially for the high performers.
No, most definitely. And I really equate that and just through my lens is like, if you're driving your car and your check engine light comes on, would you want to just keep driving over and over and over and over with your check engine light, or would you go take it to get some help and get it back going, in tip-top condition? And I really equate that to that.
My last assignment, or 2 assignments ago, I was with special operations in Campbell, and one of the operators, their deployments every 6 months, people out the door every 6 months. And one of the senior operators had said, I tell some of the younger operators, it's kind of like running a NASCAR race. You cannot, I don't know how many laps they run in NASCAR because I don't know NASCAR, but he said, you cannot run a full NASCAR race without ever changing the tires, without ever changing the oil. Why would we treat our cars better than what we do as humans? You can't expect to deploy year after year, month after months, do this job for as long as we do it without taking a pit stop. Sometimes we just need that pit stop.
No, you're right. And, it kind of goes along with, how do we process these thoughts? How do we get unstuck with negative emotions? And, it kind of discusses how we just stated, go and get some help.
Yeah.
But I really want to reach out to someone like that doesn't feel they can reach out. Because those are some of the ones that sometimes we can't reach, And with suicide prevention this month, I really want to reach out to them, say, like, you're not alone, we're here to help you out, don't be afraid, please reach out to somebody because everybody's valuable. And I just want to be able to say, how can we reach that person that says, nah, it's not for me.
Yeah. Going back to my time with fifth group, there's this video called Breaking the Stigma from USASOC. If you take a look at it, some of the things that they talk about is our own human pride.
Right.
And being okay to put that aside to say, let me give this a try.
Right.
It is hard to step outside of ourselves because we reflect and think, what's wrong with me? I thought I could do this on my own. The things that we tell us that keep us from going to get help. Our own stigma on ourselves. We always say there's, in the military, we have this saying that there's a stigma in getting behavioral health, but I argue that a little bit.
Okay.
Some of it's our own stigma.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree because I've lived it,
Yeah.
And if you're listening out there, trust me, it's, we think we can continue pushing forward with, and sometimes we have things that we need to get off our shoulders or go and talk to somebody about it. And we think it's an Army stigma or a service stigma. And it's just really getting past your personal pride, your stigma, to go say, I'm going to talk to somebody, and I guarantee you, once you do it that first time, there's a little bit of a relief to know that somebody's there wanting to help out and listen to you.
We're human. That's
Right.
just our human nature.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with having pride. There's nothing wrong with having it. It's our human nature. But, when somebody is really has this that they've been dealing with for a while and have been wanting to unload it, that's the first step.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. And going into the article, you stated a quote. And it looked like it was from another psychiatrist, Viktor Frankl.
Frankl. Yep.
Frankl, a survivor, of Auschwitz.
Yep.
And out of the book called Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to kind of, I'll go over the quote and let you see what your thoughts are on wanting to select that quote for your article. And, the quote, it says, if there is a meaning in life at all, then there must be a meaning in suffering. Suffering is an ineradicable part of life, even as fate and death. Without suffering and death, human life cannot be complete. And I just wanted to see what your perspective was on that quote.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit more about Viktor Frankl and his book. He writes about day in and day out being in Auschwitz and then in the concentration camps. And some days all they had was the blue sky. That was it. That was all they had. And so his book, the premise is man's search for meaning in the suffering. And I don't in any way want to be dismissive in someone's suffering. But that also becomes a stuck point. In that suffering, that's where we sometimes find people considering suicide, ending their life because they can't find a way out of that suffering. And sometimes that means finding meaning in the suffering. Suffering over decisions that were made, during deployments that we have no control over. So we find meaning. People that were lost, how would we want to continue our lives in memory of people that were lost? Find that meaning. Do something. Support organizations or find meaning in your life to combat that suffering that people have had to deal with, over the years of considering deployments, watching what was on TV. That's where I was going.
That's awesome. And I think, if it strung a chord with me, I think it was important. I think it probably strung a chord with many others that are out there, especially with the events. I mean, forever we will have 3 sites that are hallowed grounds now due to the 9/11 events. And, seeing life through a different lens after 9/11 has really brought forward many people that go through all these different emotions and bring up different scars that they've had in the past, that emotions that they've gone through, you know. And I think it's important. It's important that we continue to talk about it. And I'm glad we were able to bring you on the show to talk a little bit about this. And you know, I mean, we could probably talk for days on different things. I mean, of this, you know, and like you said, in loss we can rise. I can tell you that, like many other, my blood runs red, white, and blue, you know, or else I wouldn't have been in the service so long. And, you know, when the calling was called, we all went forward. And during that time frame, I think it really brought the country together, and very patriotic people. And I think we continue to do that by reflecting, by talking about that it's okay to seek help, by saying, hey, you know, you played your part. If you were a service member, if you're a law enforcement, no matter what, or if you were just, you know, out there supporting, you know, the country. And I think it's important that we continue to talk it, because to me, they'll never be forgotten.
Right.
And I think it's something that we continue to talk, so that even generations down the road know the sacrifices and the scars and emotions that, you know, really builds this country so strong. And like you say, you know, winning matters, and we are go-getters, and, you know, we'll continue to push forward.
Yeah.
But every now and then we need some help.
Yeah. And I think that's an important piece to recognize too. You know, in the military, we focus on training. We focus on developing courses of actions, and our human experience, our human nature is to expect that things are going to go the way that we have trained, the way we have prepared for. And they don't always go that way, as we've seen with Afghanistan, the pullout, as we've seen when, you know, things have happened in combat that we could not control for. And our human nature is to try and make sense of that. And that sometimes, when we can't make sense of it, we start to plug in our own understanding.
Right.
Maybe we should have done this. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe X, Y, Z. And in that, that's those thinking habits that create stuck points, that create suffering. And I always, you know, it's a matter of learning to accept it in a way that makes sense for people who are struggling with some of those stuck points, because things happen in life that we have no control over. There's a saying, good things happen to good people. Why do bad things happen to bad people? Why do good things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen to good people? It's not that black and white.
Right. You're absolutely right, man. I mean, you know, when you say in the title of the article, finding healing, you know, while watching events beyond your control, is just that. You know, it's going to trigger emotions. It's going to trigger scars that we might have in the past, but we don't have the control over that. So, you know, and if it feels like you are losing some of that control, then please reach out to somebody to help you regain that grounding again, so that you can continue forward, and you don't hit a dead end, or you don't hit a brick wall. And this is why I wanted to bring you onto the podcast, so we can talk about it, and we can reach out to our audiences out there that's listening in, you know, and there's much more that we can talk about and go different ways. But I just want to have you come on the show, ma'am, to talk a little bit about, you know, your article, because I think it really was important to me when I read it, and I was like, why not talk about it, you know, because there's a lot of things out there that tie in. You know, when we talk about the Afghanistan drawdown, how it didn't quite go, you know, maybe how people perceived it to go, and we don't have that control over what happened, and we're going to get better. You know, in the Army, we do after action reviews. We look at some of the mistakes that occurred, or some of the things we could have done better, and improve off of that. What I really want to do is say thank you, ma'am, for coming on to the show and giving us your perspective, giving us some talking points on the BLUF line. And, you know, hopefully down the road, we'll bring you back on again. Before I close out, give you an opportunity to say anything out there that you want to close out with. Yeah,
I will say, if anybody's out there struggling with suicidal ideations, you know, thoughts of ending their life, reach out. The National Suicide Line, it's available. It's a crisis line. You know, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody. Veterans organizations, Military One Source. We have military family life consultants on posts that can help. They do brief counseling. They don't keep records. Of course, if there's some risk involved, they're going to send them to our department, but there's resources out there. And of course, then there's our program at Fox Army Health Center, the Department of Behavioral Health. We're here to serve the active duty and dependents. So, give us a call. Our number is 256-955-8888, and get a hold of our department if you need any services and support.
Most definitely.
That's all I have.
And again, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
And please, to my listening audience, don't be afraid to take that road and get some help. We're always here to help you guys out. Like Major Ijames just talked about, there's many facets out there to help you out. The crisis line and the one-stop military one source, you name it. Just pick up the phone or go in and get some help. We care about you. And,
Absolutely.
When we talk about winning matters, that is part of winning, to go seek some help.
Right.
And thank you for coming to the show. And again, this is Command Sergeant Major Jimenez signing off on the BLUF line. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.